think we're morning.
All right, good morning, all. Welcome to the joint meeting of the State Review Board and the Board of Historic Resources. We are assembled in person today at the Westover Building at Maymont in Richmond, Virginia. DHR is presenting today's meetings virtually to facilitate attendance by individuals who are unable to attend physically, and the meeting is also being recorded. But first, before we begin our meeting, I would like to introduce Park Richardson, the President and CEO of Maymont. And thank you very much for hosting us today.
I assume that people are attending from across the Commonwealth. Who's been to Maymont before? Raise your hand. In that, kind of like Maymont a little bit. You've had fun here, good experience. We have enjoyed many years of a great partnership with the Commonwealth and the Department of Historic Resources, and just really appreciate your support for preservation and historic places all throughout the Commonwealth. And big fans of yours, and appreciate every time that we can share Maymont with you. Maymont, as many of you know who've been here, was established in 1893 by James and Sally Dooley. They were a wealthy couple who lived in Richmond and established this as their country home, and was a place for them to create and design and build to their pleasure and benefit, and as a showplace for when folks from all over really the world came to visit them here. And so they enjoyed it for many years. He passed in 1922. She passed in 1925. And at that point, they were very philanthropic and generous, had no children, and left the estate to the people of Richmond for the pleasure and benefit of the people. And they left it to be used as a park and a museum. And I very much appreciate that line. And as I've been in this role for 8 years now, I keep going back to it, because it's not preserve, put it under glass, and let it sit there. It's meant to be used and enjoyed by people. It's meant to be a dynamic historic place. So we focus on adaptive reuse here while preserving all the historic features. And it's a wonderful, delicate balance that we work to achieve here. So the city took over Maymont in 1925 and ran it for 50 years. In the 1950s, the Thalheimer family was in charge of department stores in downtown Richmond. It's kind of like the Macy's of Richmond at the time, Thalheimer and Millen Roads. And they had an animal promotion, I guess, that you could do in that day. So they had some exotic animals and such to help promote and stimulate visitation to their department stores. And when they were finished with that promotion, they had these animals, and the generous Thalheimer family realized Richmond doesn't really have a zoo in the central location, and that urban children would probably enjoy getting to know things about wildlife and farm animals. So they donated their formerly promotional animals to live here at Maymont as the Thalheimer Wildlife Welfare Society. And so that's why we have Maymont animals here. And we have continued that tradition of focusing on wildlife that is rescued. We don't go out and capture an animal and bring it here. But when one needs a home and it's a Virginia native species, we provide a habitat for it and commit to care for it for life. We really commit to our animals for their lifetime to give them the best care. And so we do that. And then also we have the interpretive farm for domestic, the economy of farms, how farms work, our food sources, and also just to engage with animals that the kids will enjoy. So that's why the animals are here, which many people are curious. So then the city took in the animals and took care of Maymont. And then in the early 1970s, it became pretty apparent that the city wasn't able to fully take care of Maymont. They didn't have the resources, they didn't have the skill sets and the expertise. So in the early 70s, there were newspaper articles about that Maymont is the city's albatross, and it was the disrepair that the estate was falling into became kind of a public outcry. So at that time, the Thalheimer family again gathered with other leaders of the city and patrons of the community at that time and established the Maymont Foundation. So we, since 1975, have been caring for Maymont as the Maymont Foundation. We're under a collaborative agreement with the city of Richmond. And we do so under long-term sort of, it's a operating agreement that's a little bit like a leasehold situation. So we've had the pleasure of doing that. And during our time, we've restored as much as we can get our hands on and resources for. And the mansion is looking great. It's beautiful inside. Outside, it's got some work going on. You may notice, and if you have a chance to walk over and see, we are replacing the gray Buckingham slate. That's the roof of the mansion. It had been put in by the city in 1960 and had infiltrated and was starting to get intrusions of water into the fabric of the building. So we are embarked on this campaign to raise funds to replace the roof. And we are doing so with the red slate, which comes from northern New York, right on the Lake George border. And it's the same red slate that the Dooleys had used. It's the same historic site and quarry of material going on. So you can see this facade of the roof is the red slate and the gray Buckingham is on the other side. So that project and that encouragement that we had with that initiative gave us the ability to apply for funding with the federal government through the Economic Development Administration tourism sources. And we were able to secure a funding for a $10 million project, which was part of the ARPA funds back in the late 2020, 2021 era. We applied and we won. So we brought that funds to Virginia to support construction of the roof. And at the time, we had also conducted a historic resources report on the mansion. So we had shovel-ready projects to go for other preservation work inside the mansion, which is HVAC enhancements, fire detection enhancements, structural elements where the roof was putting pressure on the facade of the building and it was starting to pull away where the Tiffany window is. So we're shoring that up and pulling that back in. It was actually never secured well, according to the engineers. So we're correcting that situation. And then also part of the project is to improve the habitats, bring in new species, and improve our educational abilities as well as accessibility. So we are creating ADA accessible paths throughout the habitats, which will greatly accommodate our folks that use assistive devices, as well as all the little feed and strollers that run through here. It'll be a lot easier to use that part of Maymont. And our hills are a challenge as it is, so we're shoring that up. So are there any questions, anything I can answer? Hopefully you can get out before the rain and enjoy the estate a little bit.
Curious about the EDA grants that's under commerce. Did you have to justify like a tourism component to it?
There's a tourism component to it, yes, yes. So last year our visitation was over $1 million. I mean, 1 million people. So yeah, it's a $10 million project. Yeah,
That's great.
yeah, so it's tourism and jobs. So it's all.
I do have to say, I came here yesterday and walked around a little bit, and then I've never been on this end of the park. And the petting zoo that's over there. So I haven't been there since I was 4. Apparently, I was like, I don't remember any of this, but I have pictures of me.
Okay, yeah. Did you get a revisit picture we do before?
No, I didn't.
We are coming up on our 100th anniversary as a public site because Maymont was open to the public, of course, after the Dooleys passed in 1926. So we will be celebrating in the spring and we'll be asking for those kinds of photos. So be in touch.
I'll look for them.
My question was going to be if you have an endowment.
So it's very small. Yes. It's
Perfect time for the
20
hunt.
million. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. Opportunity.
Yes, it is. All right. Well, thank
Very
you.
much.
Enjoy your day and let us know if you need.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, to move back to our agenda, my name is John Mullen and I am the chair of the State Review Board, and I hereby call the meeting of the State Review Board to order. To take action to discuss or transact business statutorily required or necessary to continue the operation of the board. Deputy Director Williams, would you please call our roll to determine who's present and whether or not we have a quorum?
Present.
Ms. Shaw,
Present.
Dr. Green. Here. Lee,
Here.
Dr. Smith,
Here.
and Ms. Roach,
Here.
and Chair Mullen.
Same here. Thank you very much. We do have a quorum. Next, on behalf of the board, I would now like to read the land acknowledgement statement. The Department of Historic Resources, the Board of Historic Resources, and the State Review Board acknowledge the indigenous people of Virginia and express their gratitude for their continued stewardship of her lands and waterways over many generations. We also acknowledge the free and enslaved Africans and their descendants whose labors and contributions on behalf of the Commonwealth have long been overlooked. We commit ourselves to the meaningful engagement with all Virginians, past and present, as we strive to fulfill our charge as stewards of Virginia's long and rich history. All right, next I'll introduce you to the purpose of the State Review Board and then to our individual members as well. The Virginia State Review Board operates under federal legal mandates of the Department of Interior. It is a body empowered by the National Historic Preservation Act. The State Review Board's primary role is to review reports and nominations that are proposals for official designation to the National Register of Historic Places. When the State Review Board votes this morning, they're voting to recommend a resource either eligible or not eligible for listing in the National Register. This board recommendation is made to the Director of the Department of Historic Resources, Julie Langen, who in turn makes her recommendation to the Keeper of the National Register. All board members are appointed by the Director. At least a majority of the board members must be practitioners who meet the professional standards established by the Secretary of Interior and the core disciplines, including architecture, architectural history, archaeology, prehistorical and historical, anthropology, and history. A few words about where we are in the process of designating the resources on the agenda today. All items you will see this morning have graduated through a careful process of review. This process has two major steps. Owners have submitted their proposal in a preliminary report to staff and board. In some cases, site visits have been made and more information has been requested either by the staff or the board. These nominations were written after the first round of reviews. Guidance and research recommendations have been explored and incorporated into the final nominations. These nominations also go through a rigorous process. All nominations have been posted for public review on the Department of Historic Resources website. The following criteria are used to measure the significance of a resource. These criteria are identical for listing in the state register as well, and they include criteria A is significant historical association, criterion B is association to a historical person, criteria C is significance for architectural or craftsmanship qualities, and criterion D is for archaeological significance. Since the register is based on the importance of authentic materials, tests of historic integrity have also been brought into play. A resource must convey its significance through surviving historic fabric, and in the case of architecture, intact historic form and spatial arrangements. If the board votes to approve these resources this morning and the director agrees with our board, the staff will then forward the nominations to the Keeper of the National Register within 90 days of this meeting. And the Keeper of the National Register will complete review within approximately 45 days. Upon approval of the nomination by the Keeper, the resources listed in the National Register. The owners of historic resources are entitled to place a plaque in their building. They have access to various preservation programs that are offered by the state and the federal government. Listing is not an absolute protection. It is honorary, and protection and stewardship of these historic resources is dependent on the owner. There are no restrictions for the use of the designated property that occurs as a result of listing. right, now we'll move on to member introductions. I'll ask our members to introduce themselves, tell you where they're from, starting with Dr. Breen.
Good morning, I'm Eleanor Breen, and I'm an archaeologist from the city of Alexandria.
I'm Jeff Klee, and I'm an architectural historian from Williamsburg.
Carol Shaw, a historian from Arlington.
Jody Allen, a historian. I teach at the William and Mary, and I live in Ashland.
Greg Rutledge, a historic preservation architect practicing in Norfolk.
Larissa Smith, I'm a historian. I teach at Longwood University and live in Farmville.
I'm John Mullen. I'm also an archaeologist, and I live in Falls Church, Virginia. Thank you. All right, board members, you have. Yep. Before we move on to approval of the agenda, I'm sorry. I need to state that all state review board members and most of the department staff here are participating in person today at this meeting. We also have some members of the public here with us today and others joining virtually. And again, this is a public meeting and it will be streamed online, and the online content will be recorded. So now, board members, you have a copy of the final agenda in front of you today for this meeting. If there are no questions or comments on the agenda or the format, I'd like to request a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Again, also at the table in front of you, you have a copy of the minutes from our last meeting in December. You have those there, yes. Are there any changes or corrections that need to be made to the agenda? If none, I would like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes. Thank you, Jody. Is there a second?
Second.
Eleanor, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. And I believe there is one more thing that we do need to vote on too as well. Virtual meeting policy, which is identical to the last time we voted on this. It just turns out that we have to vote on it on an annual basis now as well. So that being said, I'd like to entertain a motion for approving the virtual attendance policy as well.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Right. Now I'll turn the meeting back over to the Board of Historic Resources. Amy.
You. I call this meeting to order to take action to discuss or transact the business statutorily required or necessary to continue operation of the Board of Historic Resources. My name is Amy Giorgiani, Chair of the Board of Historic Resources. I live in Falls Church, Virginia. Deputy Director Williams, please call the roll to determine the board members who are present and to confirm that we have a quorum.
Attorney Pollard,
Here.
Spivey, Mr. Towns,
Here.
Ms. Poskett,
Here.
Ms. Hudson,
Here.
and Chair Jordan.
Here. So Dr. Spivey has informed us of her request to participate remotely. I agree that this request is in conformance with our adopted policy and approve of Dr. Spivey's participation from King William County. This is our first remote participation this calendar year. Is there a motion to approve? Thank you, Dr. Attorney Pollard. Second, thank you. Let's see, the motion is approved. I didn't do this yet to officially call it to order. So we're on. The Virginia Board of Historic Resources is an official policy-making board of the Commonwealth of Virginia created by the Code of Virginia. Its policies are implemented by the Department of Historic Resources, which day in and day out labors on behalf of our irreplaceable resources in the interest of the citizens of this Commonwealth. The board is charged primarily with the responsibility for designating historic landmarks of local, statewide, or national significance, establishing historic preservation practices for the care and management of our Virginia historic landmarks, designating state-recognized historic districts and archaeological sites and zones, approving highway markers, reviewing programs and services of the department, and making recommendations to the director of our department and the governor regarding programs and services. And finally, in order to preserve important sites and buildings in perpetuity, accepting voluntarily granted gifts of preservation easements over historic properties to the Commonwealth. The Governor of Virginia selects members of the board from volunteer and professional leaders of Virginia's history, preservation, and museum communities. Votes taken during this meeting are official actions of the Commonwealth of Virginia Board of Historic Resources. Now I'll actually ask the board members to introduce themselves for everyone and tell where you are from, starting at this point.
Hi, everyone. It's Mary Pope Hudson, president of Sweetbriar College, Sweetbriar, Virginia.
Kurt Pollard, I'm the Land and Community Director for Southern and Brown Mountain Western, and also the Policy Chair for Preservation Virginia from Bon Air.
And Amy Giorgiani, Falls Church, Virginia.
Okay, I'm Martin Towns. I'm from King William County. I am the Deputy Butler at the Governor's Mansion and also the Mansion Historian.
Good morning. I'm Jamie Boskett. I'm the president of the State History Museum of Richmond, Virginia.
Thank you. Please be advised that today's meeting is taking place in person and online and is being recorded. So board members, you have a copy of the final agenda for this meeting. If there are no questions or comments on the format or the agenda, I would like to request a motion to approve the agenda and format for today's meeting. Is there a motion to approve? Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion is passed. Approval of minutes. Board members, please refer to your minutes from the last joint board meeting on December 12th. Are there any changes or corrections that need to be made to these minutes? Do I have a second to, or a motion to approve the minutes from?
So moved.
And do I have a second? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? All right, the approval of the minutes is passed. And then I do believe I need to also go to the meeting policy for the hybrid participation. Again, an annual occurrence. Is there a motion to approve that policy?
Awesome.
Pollard, a second, please.
Second.
Thank you. And all in favor, please say aye.
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 None opposed. The motion for that policy passes. All right, I will give the floor back to the State Review Board Chair.
Thank you very much. Introduce Julie Langland, the Director of Department of Historic Resources.
Well, good morning. It's so nice to be at Maymont. Some of you will remember that we've met in another part of Maymont on the other side of the property. This is our first time meeting in this particular facility, which is fairly new and was the focus of a bit of a preservation tussle with a very happy ending. This was a private residence in a residential neighborhood. And there was concern that the property was going to be torn down. And that almost happened, but in the end, the Maymont Foundation chose to rehabilitate it and turn it into this wonderful facility. So very happy about that. I want to just acknowledge a couple of people in the audience. First, we have with us from the Secretary's Office, Corey Scott, and he's sitting there in the front row. Thanks for being here, Corey. Since you last saw Corey, he has become the Deputy Secretary for Natural and Historic Resources. Congratulations on that. And then we also have two representatives from the Office of the Attorney General, Andrew Tarn and Wes Montgomery. And thank you for being with us today. Since I sent out a director's report to board members at the end of last week, there's a bit of additional board news that I wanted to share, and that is that we have in our midst not just a social media giant star, but now a Virginia 250 ambassador, Martin Towns. I hope you all follow Martin on social media. How many followers do you have?
I feel like it's like 40,000 maybe.
40,000.
Wow.
But he was just recently named the first and are you the only Virginia,
As far as I know, I'm the only one.
the only Virginia 250 ambassador. So congratulations.
Thank you.
I'd like to move on to updating you about the recently concluded General Assembly session, which adjourned on February 22nd. Thankfully, it was a short session. And there are some things included in the budget related to additional funding for preservation that I'd just like to call your attention to. We will be receiving, we hope, we're waiting on the governor's signed budget. But the budget approved by the House and the Senate includes 1.5 million in funding for the BIPOC fund. It includes a little over $76,000 to support markers related to lynching sites. It includes $1 million for the African American Cemetery and Graves Fund. $300 in additional general fund support for operations of the agency, as well as 2 positions. We do not have the funding to fill those positions, but you may know that additional positions are very difficult to come by, so we're glad that we have them. We'll just have to wait to fill those. And then as usually the case, there are a number of grants that we refer to as pass-through grants. They are the result of budget amendments made by members, and they are located within our budget. So we're the agency that passes those funds on to a variety of projects at the local level. And some of those include $8 million that will be going to Jamestown, which is wonderful. Money going to the city of Norfolk for a survey of Titustown, funding to Arlington for the Hume School, $1 million to Virginia Beach for its African American Cultural Center, and funding for the James Solomon Russell St. Paul's College Archives and Museum. So when the General Assembly reconvenes the week after next, we will know, hopefully for certain, what among those additional funding line items will come our way. Moving on to the federal budget, I have been fielding so many questions over the last few weeks about the department's budget relative to federal funding. And just to start, I should say most people don't realize how dependent we are on our federal funding. A lot of people probably are unaware that we have every year for decades received a federal apportionment through the Historic Preservation Fund, and that funds primarily, we use most of that for staff salaries, and it compensates us for administering on the state level a variety of federal programs. So every state in the country has a state historic preservation office. Here in Virginia, that's DHR. And in exchange for this federal funding, we administer the National Register of Historic Places, the Federal Historic Tax Credit, the Section 106 process, and a number of other federal programs. There is a very complicated apportionment formula, and the amount that we receive varies from year to year, but not drastically. And we've been averaging in the last couple of years about 1.2 million. And that's always been a very reliable source of funding upon which we're very, very dependent. We did have a brief period that was only a few days long where we weren't able to draw down those funds, and that was national news, but we have since then had no problem accessing those funds. There have been no interruption, and we're continuing to draw them down. I should also mention that in addition to using our federal appropriation for staff salaries, we are obligated, it's a condition of the grant that we pass 10% of that amount through to our certified local governments in the form of grants. We expect some grant funds to be eliminated from the budget. That's the information that we're receiving. Hopefully that's not going to affect any projects that are currently underway, but will instead impact the opportunities to apply for grant programs in the future. Early in March, Roger Urchin and I went to DC for 3 days. We attended the National Conference of State Historic Preservation Officers annual meeting, and then a joint meeting with Preservation Action, of which Carol Shull is a member of the executive committee. And while there, we met with every single member of Virginia's congressional delegation, and Carol was right there with us, walking the halls of Congress. It's a long, tiring day, but if any of you would ever like to join in doing that, it's something that we do every year. This year, we decided that we should meet with every single member, so we met with all 13. And we divided into 2 teams in order to squeeze 13 meetings in a single day. And again, if that sounds like something you would be interested in doing next year, just let us know. We'd be happy to have you. The requests that we were making at those meetings, you should be aware of, and if you have the opportunity to support, include the reauthorization of the Historic Preservation Fund because that authorization has expired. It includes funding in the 2026 budget for the HPF. And then we wanted to call attention to the fact that there will be a bill that would enhance the federal historic tax credit. That bill is going to be another version of the Historic Tax Credit Growth and Opportunity Act, HTC GO. And it would improve and modernize the federal credit, making it easier to use. It would make it easier for nonprofits to take advantage of, and it would also make it easier for smaller scale projects to use the program. So moving on to staff vacancies, you will recall from previous meetings over the last year that the department has been challenged by a number of vacancies, and I'm just happy to report that most of those vacancies have either been filled or are in the process of being filled. So we are pretty well up to full staff. And I wanted to also report that we have launched all of the 250 Preservation Fund projects. We have 35. We have most of those under grant agreement. We've made site visits to all of them, and they are launched, pretty much all underway. Speaking of Virginia 250, this is a really big weekend in that respect. Give Me Liberty, the exhibit that is under the auspices of the Virginia 250 Commission, debuts this weekend at the Virginia Museum of History and Culture. And it's up for how long, Jamie?
Through January.
Through January. So when we have a board meeting later this year at VMHC, we will encourage all of you to take a look at that exhibit. Jamie will be attending, and I will be, and maybe others in the room, the third A Common Cause to All gathering in Williamsburg the first 3 days of next week. There are 500 people expected, representing 40 states and 60 Virginia localities. And we will all be coming together to be inspired and exchange ideas about planning for 2026. I included in the report that I sent a calendar as it stands at the moment of our highway marker dedications. You know that spring and summer is the busy time of year for those events, which really bring together communities and are such uplifting opportunities to focus on local history. If any of you would like to represent the department at one of those, please don't be shy, volunteer, and we'd be happy to have your assistance. I think we've got Martin signed up for one coming up, and Ken Rutherford is also on the schedule. Lastly, I'd like to look ahead to the June meeting and remind you that we will not be meeting on the third Thursday. We're avoiding Juneteenth by meeting on the second Thursday, which is June 12th. And we will be meeting in Farmville. And I have been at DHR a long, long time and don't remember ever having a board meeting in Farmville. So if we have, it was decades ago. And for that reason, we're asking board members to arrive the day before on the 11th so that you can see some of the history in the Farmville area. And I'd like to invite Larissa, who's helping plan this, to just give us a teaser about what to expect.
I'm super excited to have everybody there in June. So arriving early on Wednesday, we'll be able to tour the Moton Museum. And I think also we might get on a bus and it may be me driving the bus, but then we'll get to go out to Israel Hill, where there's a historic marker, the free Black community that was organized there prior to the Civil War. You'll also be staying in the Hotel Wyanoke, which was also renovated for historic tax credits, and at one time was the tallest building west of Richmond. It has a great rooftop bar, and so I hope we'll also be able to have some fun up there on Wednesday evening, but not too much fun. And then on Thursday, we'll meet just up at the hill in Radcliffe Hall at Longwood. So I'm excited to host you on Longwood's campus and host you at Moton that Wednesday.
Thank you. And thank you for all the assistance you're giving us. It's always a lot more work, especially for Jen Pullen, when we meet outside of Richmond, and having a local partner makes all the difference. So thank you so much. I'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone may have. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Langen, for your report. Now I will turn the meeting back over to the Board of Historic Resources for the state.
So now we've reached the point of our agenda of public comment period. The Virginia Board of Historic Resources desires to hear the viewpoints of interested citizens, but also needs to conduct its business in an orderly and efficient manner. Therefore, the next portion of the meeting provides an opportunity for general public to identify matters of interest. While the public is welcome to express any concerns that they may have, the boards are not in a position to comment or respond, but rather listen and potentially provide direction to staff for follow-up. If matters broached during the public comment portion of the agenda seem to warrant further attention and discussion and are within the board's authority, then those matters may be taken up as formal agenda items at subsequent board meetings. In consideration of the time constraints, speakers during the public comment period are requested to limit their presentation to a maximum of 3 minutes, and I will keep a clock on that. Upon recognition by the chair, we ask that speakers clearly state their name and then directly address their comments to the board. As a reminder, board members will not officially respond to speakers nor take action on matters presented that are not already part of the agenda. So I would like to give the floor over to Deputy Director Williams, who will call on each person who has signed up to speak either in person or virtually. At the conclusion of the speakers, I will, at the time, I will also make note that the time is close to being up.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and do the online
presenters first and then back over to you, Chair Giorgiani. We have one person signed up virtually, and that is Sue Sargent. So Ms. Sargent, I am going to unmute your mic, and then if you can also unmute your mic and begin your comments for 3 minutes. Ms. Sargent, you can unmute your mic and begin your comments. Ms. Sargent, you seem to be unable to unmute your mic. We'll go ahead with the in-person and then maybe try one more time after they're done. Thank you.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought you, I know I have the list, but perhaps there was a duplicate. Yeah, for first person that is here, would be Linda Noe, speaking on behalf of Sublets Tavern. If you come, is there, come to the podium or, yeah.
Good morning. My name is Linda Noe, my husband Joseph, and I own Sublets Tavern. We've lived in Powhatan for many years and raised our family there. Our previous house was near Sublets Tavern, and we passed it nearly every day. The tavern is such a big part of Powhatan's history and American history for over 200 years. It also helps tell the story of the French Huguenots' arrival in Virginia. When the tavern came up for sale in 2007, we jumped at the chance to buy it. We knew the building needed work, but oh my goodness. We've replaced all of the leaking roofs, shored up the sinking foundation in the kitchen, put in a sump pump and French drains to help with the standing water under the house. We repaired rotted siding boards and replaced several rotted windows. HVAC, plumbing, and electrical have all been updated, mostly for safety. A major crack in one of the chimneys has been repaired. We were lucky to have Preservation Virginia come out to help us with repair rotted wood on the house and the front porches. Mike and Spencer, their master craftsmen, taught us so much about preservation and building repairs. They were incredible to work with. Our neighbor and good friend, David Zaletti, is a contractor and specializes in historic homes. His help and knowledge has been invaluable. We think that it's not just the building, but what it means to people that needs to be preserved. One of the first people to stop by when we bought the house was previous owner, Paula Lehman. She was such an inspiration and truly loved Sublets Tavern. We have had Sublets descendants from as far away as New Mexico stop by. We still keep in touch with Chastain descendants from North Carolina. It's such a privilege to meet all these wonderful visitors at the tavern. In 2003, we had a Christmas open house fundraiser for the Powhatan Coalition of Churches. We were totally overwhelmed by the number of people who stopped in with stories about the tavern. Our hope is to continue to be good stewards of this property. We have been looking into a conservation easement for the future. Our friend and neighbor across the Huguenot Trail just completed the conservation easement for his farm. Listing Sublets Tavern on the Historic Register would be so important in preserving a wonderful piece of Powhatan in American history. Thank you for your consideration, and I want to thank Kristen for all of her hard work on our nomination. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. And then we've also have Kristen Kirchen speak on Sublets Tavern as well.
Morning. My name is Kristen Kirchen, and I wrote the nomination for Sublets Tavern in Powhatan County that is before you today. Sublet's Tavern was constructed in 1813 as a combination commercial and domestic space by William Sublet. He was first licensed to operate an ordinary at his house located on the 5-acre parcel that he owned along the road to Richmond in 1813. By 1819, a post office had been established at the tavern, and Sublet was the first postmaster. The tavern operated until 1845, and the post office was in operation until 1942. The contemporary account of Blair Bowling, an early 19th century diarist from Powhatan County, mentions dining at William Sublet's Tavern on several occasions and visiting family members staying at the tavern to take the waters at nearby Huguenot Springs in the 18-teens and 1820s. Taverns and post offices both served important social and economic functions in 19th century rural Virginia communities, and Sublet's Tavern has been a local landmark for more than 200 years. At the same time, the same building has also served a domestic function as the family home for William Sublet, his wife Mary, and 4 children for almost 60 years, followed by the Campbell, Evans, and Porter families. As the years passed and the tavern operation ceased, the residential functions of the building expanded to fill the physical spaces that were originally constructed for commercial use. Though Sublet's Tavern is today a fully private dwelling, it is still a local landmark and physical reminder of the historical development of this transportation corridor and continues to be known by its historic name, with its prominent and highly visible roadside location and an exterior appearance with 3 doorways signifying the multiple uses that formerly could be found there. As many 200-year-old buildings are wont to do, Sublet's Tavern went through a period of decline, and in the 1970s, the building required substantial repairs that was going to remain standing. Therefore, many of the materials visible from the exterior today are in-kind replacements of severely deteriorated original elements. Nonetheless, architecturally, Sublet's Tavern is an example of a rare building type, an early 19th century purpose-built tavern and dwelling that illustrates the vernacular building traditions of Central Virginia and the way these were adapted in a building constructed to serve both a commercial and a domestic function. The building technology and the evidence of change over time are both important components of the historical record. The methods of construction employed in Sublet's Tavern, the heavy timber frame with Roman numeral carpenter's marks and on hewn and pit sawn framing, joined with pegged mortise and tenon joints, and the early generation cut nails with handmade double-struck heads are examples of craftsmanship that would be replaced by the mid-19th century by the increasing standardization and mechanization of the building trades. The current owners, as you hear, are proud to be the stewards of a property rich in Powhatan County history and are dedicated to preserving the historic character of Sublet's Tavern. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have as you discuss the nomination.
Thank you. And then we've got one final speaker registered here, Mark Reed.
Good morning. I'm Mark Reed, Historic Preservation Planner for the City of Virginia Beach. I'm here today to speak on the 37th Street Cottage Historic District. The PIF for the 37th Street Cottage District was approved by the State Review Board in September 2023. PIF was initiated by an individual interested in purchasing the cottages and the mid-century Cutty Sark Motel across the street, which is listed in the National Register as the Crest Kitchenette Motel. The interested person wanted to utilize the historic tax credits to rehabilitate these properties. After the PIF was approved, the financing for the property purchase fell through. The Virginia Beach Historic Preservation Commission has long had an interest in the 37th Street cottages, and with the approval of the owner, Mrs. Cook, the Commission stepped forward and funded the nomination. 3 World War II cottages at Virginia Beach Oceanfront Resort area on Atlantic and Pacific Avenues between 1st and 40th Street are a very rare resource. The rarity of the resource type was a question the State Review Board brought forward when reviewing the PIF. To better address this question, Virginia Beach Historic Preservation Commission included survey of pre-World War II cottages in the Oceanfront Resort area as part of the project. Only 9 other cottages from that era were identified. The small grouping of cottages at 37th Street is indeed a rare resource. Mr. and Mrs. Cook, who purchased the Cutty Sark Motel in 1977, began acquiring the cottages on 37th Street in 1980 and utilized them as additional short-term vacation rentals. Mrs. Cook still manages the Cutty Sark Motel and the cottages. And it is her and her late husband that we thank for their stewardship and the preservation of these resources. We'd also like to thank Ashlyn Stump, Marcus Pollard, and the team at Commonwealth Preservation Group for the fantastic job they have done conducting the survey and preparing the nomination that you have before you today. On behalf of the Virginia Beach Historic Preservation Commission and the City of Virginia Beach, I encourage you to approve listing 37th Street Cottage Historic District in Virginia Landmarks Register and recommending it to the National Park Service. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Do you want to try one more time online? Okay.
Ms. Sargent, I have again unmuted your mic on my end, so if you can try again on yours and begin your comments. Ms. Sargent, you may begin your comments.
All right. This concludes the public comment. We would like to thank all those who spoke during today's public comment period. Your comments are proof of the importance of citizen involvement in the proceedings of these boards, and they will receive careful consideration by both boards. This is the public comment portion of today's meeting. We will now take a 5-minute break.
Never seen.
We did our brief 9-minute break. Thank you, everyone. We'll now move to presentations by DHR staff of the National Register nominations, beginning with the Easter.
Morning.
Morning.
All right, so we are starting this morning in Essex County. Christchurch School consists of roughly 79 acres of rural landscape on the south bank of the Rappahannock River in central Middlesex County, roughly 2 miles southeast of Urbana. Within the historic district are a variety of buildings, athletic fields, design landscapes, and other man-made features. The majority of the academic, administrative, and athletic buildings are concentrated at its core, with a number of residential and other support buildings generally situated on the fringes of campus. The school includes a collection of buildings, structures, and landscapes that have comprised the school campus from its founding in 1921 to the present day. Christ Church's earliest buildings reflect the school's founding mission to provide quality education to a small, select group of students. Initially, each of the imposing, elaborately ornamented colonial revival buildings served a unique purpose, including a dormitory and academic building, quarters for the head of the school, a gymnasium, and a chapel. Opened in 1921, Christ Church School was one of 5 private schools originally comprising the new Episcopalian system and one of 2 new schools specifically built by the Episcopal Diocese. It has operated continuously at its present site since its founding. The school also retains a cohesive collection of buildings that reflect the changing values of the school and architectural trends in educational design throughout the 20th century. Christ Church School is locally significant under Criterion A in the area of education for its association with the church schools in the Diocese of Virginia, an Episcopalian organization founded in 1920 with the goal of establishing a system of religious schools that would provide reliable, accessible secondary education during a period of rapid population growth and social change in Virginia. School is also locally significant under Criterion C in the area of architecture due to its initial growth period in the 1920s that established a nucleus of imposing colonial revival buildings and a new wave of construction in the 1950s and 60s that saw the campus integrate modernist institutional design of the period. Looking at this under the local level of significance, under Criterion A for education, Criterion C for architecture, with a period of significance starting with the founding of the school in 1921 through its transition to a co-educational college prep school in 1972. There are 23 contributing resources and 24 non-contributing resources. Any questions? Moving on to Sublet's Tavern, which you have heard about this morning in Powhatan County. Sublet's Tavern is prominently sited along Huguenot Trail, which runs east to west through Powhatan County, parallel to the James River, located just to the north. It was an important 19th century transportation route for both locals and those passing through the county on their way to Richmond. The 3.5-acre property also includes a well, a guest house, barn, garage, shed, and areas of formal landscaping. Only the below-ground portion of the well is an additional contributing resource. The frame dwelling, known as Sublet's Tavern, has long been a landmark in Powhatan County. Established in 1813 on River Road in the northern part of the county, the tavern served both a local clientele as a community gathering spot for dining, drinking, socializing, as travelers passing through who needed a place to stay for the night. The tavern was established by William Sublet in 1813 on land that he purchased from his brother, Thomas S. Sublet, that had originally been part of their father's estate. Sublet was licensed to keep an ordinary at his house from 1813 until 1845. In 1819, a post office was established at the tavern, and Sublet was named the first postmaster, a post he held for nearly 40 years. By the mid-19th century, the surrounding geographic area had come to be known as Sublet's Tavern, and William Sublet and his brother had established a general store across the street from the tavern on William Sublet's property. The name of both the post office and the surrounding geographic area was shortened to Sublet's in the 1890s, and the post office remained in operation until 1942. In the 1970s, the tavern had fallen into disrepair and was in danger of structural failure and possible demolition. The Lehman family purchased the property and undertook steps to ensure the building's structural integrity and repaired or replaced failed and deteriorated elements.
It is a 1.5 and 2-story vernacular frame dwelling that rests on a brick foundation. The building comprises 3 main sections: a 1.5-story hall and parlor planned dwelling with a side gable roof, a 2-story 3-bay block with a side gable roof that was constructed as a separate tavern, and a 1.5-story hyphen connecting the two. Research suggests they were built either all at the same time or within a 7-year window between 1813 and 1820. The building has evolved and changed over its more than 200-year history, and its evolution is its own historical record. In the 1970s, the building's rehabilitation resulted in the preservation and continued viability of a purpose-built early 19th century tavern and dwelling. We at DHR are recognizing the diminished material integrity that resulted from the 1970s rehabilitation and restoration. However, believe that it retains enough of its character defining features to remain eligible for the registers as a very significant local landmark. So we are looking at this under the local level of significance under criterion A for commerce and criterion C for architecture, with a period of significance from 1813 to 1942. There are 2 contributing resources, the house and the below ground portion of the well, and 4 non-contributing resources. And this was written by Kristen Kirchen with Iron Dog Preservation. Any questions? Okay. Moving on to Norfolk. This is a multiple property documentation. So looking at a thematic study of the building type. So the garden apartment complexes of Norfolk MPD. At least 20 multiple family FHA finance projects were constructed in Norfolk between 1942 and 1949, with at least 6 of those built during the post-war period. More than in other Virginia cities, such as Richmond and the Northern Virginia suburbs of Arlington County, the demand for multiple family housing in Norfolk was supported by the high number of military service members returning to civilian life. This demand was coupled with the national post-war trend of many working and middle-class people moving to urban and suburban areas for employment. The garden apartment concept focused on a higher quality of life for residents by providing well-designed living spaces in a format that allowed developers to maintain profits through inclusion of numerous multiple unit buildings. A typical garden apartment complex's landscape design featured large interior green spaces with trees, shrubs, and gardens and courtyards with walkways paved with concrete or decorative brick. Buildings generally rose 2 to 3 stories and were arranged to maximize open outdoor areas. Individual apartment units were designed to have views of the interior green spaces. Natural light and ventilation were also prioritized in siting of the buildings and interior floor plans. The majority of Norfolk's extant garden apartments from this period are located within a few miles of each other off of Granby Street and West Little Creek Road. 9 World War II era garden apartment complexes are still extant in Norfolk, and each is briefly described within the nomination. 5 of these were wartime projects, 4 were constructed during the late 1940s. Unless otherwise noted in the nomination, the complexes provided housing only for white residents during the Jim Crow era. A single property type has been identified to date that is associated with this multiple property submission: privately developed garden apartment complexes in Norfolk from 1942 to 1949. Privately developed garden complexes are those that were originally developed by private firms, either using private lending or FHA financing, or a combination of the 2. Future research and field investigations may identify additional property types that are associated with the historic themes and areas of significance described within the nomination, at which time the MPD may be amended. The MPD details each of the 9 extant garden apartment complexes built between 1942 and 1949 that have been identified to date. Just to go over sort of what is required with these MPDs. The significance and character defining features of and registration requirements for privately developed garden apartment complexes in Norfolk that were constructed between 1942 and 1949 are based on the 9 extant examples described within the nomination, as well as information gleaned about other developments that are no longer extant. The areas of significance applicable to Norfolk's 1942 and 1949 privately developed garden apartments are under criterion A for social history and community planning and development, and criterion C for architecture and landscape architecture. A property may be nominated for 1 or more areas of significance under this MPD. In order to be eligible for listing as part of this MPD in the Virginia Landmarks Register and or the National Register of Historic Places,
a 1942 through 1949 privately developed garden apartment complex must meet at least one of the criteria for eligibility in one or more areas of significance identified in the document and have integrity to convey its significance. This was written by Commonwealth Preservation Group. Question. Moving on to the Talbot Park Apartments, which are being nominated under that MPD submission. So this almost 11 acre, slightly over Talbot Park Apartments complex is located in a suburban environment in the Talbot Park neighborhood in Norfolk. While there are a few blocks or grids to the degree that the parcel allows, much of the development is laid out following the shape of the parcel, particularly along the northern border. The property contains a total of 34 resources, which includes 33 contributing colonial revival style apartment buildings and one non-contributing non-historic laundry building. The Talbot Park Apartments retain a relatively high degree of the 7 aspects of integrity, as there have been few alterations since its development from 1942 to 1943. The apartments were constructed in response to the Norfolk housing shortage spurred by the dramatic population increase in Norfolk in the 1930s and 40s. The apartments were built by the Harvard Housing Corporation and designed by Norfolk architect Bernard B. Spiegel, a regional architect who is often chosen for his garden-style apartment developments. It was funded with the assistance of the Federal Housing Administration and insured mortgages. It was developed for white residents during the height of World War II. The complex is one of the original 14 garden apartment complexes built by private developers with FHA support in Norfolk between 1942 and 1949. The second largest garden-style apartment complex in the city, it is one of the 9 extant privately constructed 1940s garden apartment complexes. There are 296 units total, and the number of units in each building varies. All of the apartment buildings are colonial revival style with brick veneer and have cohesive design characteristics. 13 different building types were identified, and types were identified based on the exterior wall condition, including painted versus unpainted, the presence of coins, etc., and the different entry enclosures and door surrounds. This property is being nominated under the Garden Apartment Complexes of Norfolk, Virginia MPD and is significant under criterion A in the area of community planning and development for its association with the tremendous increase in private housing in Norfolk in response to the city's population growth and housing shortages during World War II, as well as FHA's role in financing Norfolk's garden apartment complexes constructed during this period. It is also locally significant under criterion C in the area of architecture for its design elements of wartime garden-style apartment buildings. This also includes the FHA's role in the design, materials, and construction of the apartments. So to recap, we're looking at a local level of significance under criterion A for community planning and development and criterion C for architecture, with a period of significance from 1942 to 1943. There are 33 contributing resources and 1 non-contributing resource. This was also written by Commonwealth Preservation Group.
I have a question. Sure. Is that part of the MPD?
So it's being nominated under it, and yes, it is listed within the MPD.
And okay, so within. And are these all apartments currently? Or are they condos or privately like owned? Or
They're privately owned, but they are apartments.
Yeah, they haven't been converted to condo.
So follow up on that, I was also curious, why is this one separate? If it's under MPD and not the others?
You notice when you submit an MPD, you pick one to submit with it and focus on, and this one has such high integrity and is so well preserved that this seemed like the logical fit.
Thank you.
Isn't that funny? I'd just like to make a point that relates to you. There often is confusion. These multiple property documentation forms are supposed to provide the context, but they don't individually list the ones that are given the examples. They're supposed to make it easier for the individual nominations underneath the multiple property documentation form. So that's the first one that's coming in, right, under this new multiple property documentation.
Hopefully we'll see more.
That's where I just want to clarify, because
Right, sometimes I think it's.
sometimes we see a batch of them at once. And,
Right.
On to the last one. We're looking at the 37th Street Cottages Historic District in the city of Virginia Beach. The district is a 0.6 acre urban district in Virginia Beach. It is located in the northern end of the very highly developed portion of the city and is primarily surrounded by modern development and high-rise hotels.
The historic district is composed of 3 residential properties and there are 4 secondary dwellings and sheds, totaling 7 contributing resources. The district's residential cottages are set back from the street and include rear yards and secondary resources. The cottages are all excellent local representations of craftsman-style dwellings constructed in either bungalow or American foursquare. The backyards of the 3 primary resources create a court-like setting for the secondary resources, with all of their entrances facing the primary resources. These 3 cottages and their outbuildings make up a very rare surviving collection of historic residential architecture in the Virginia Beach area. The district is reminiscent of Virginia Beach's past as a town consisting of hundreds of cottages within a few blocks of the oceanfront. The 37th Street Cottages Historic District is linked to the Virginia Beach Development Company's acquisition and development of a sizable tract of land along the oceanfront in 1900. Historically, the Virginia Beach resort area developed to include residential cottages and small-scale motels throughout the first 2 blocks along the oceanfront. Today, most of the residential cottages have been replaced by non-historic commercial buildings and high-rise hotels, while others have been replaced by large, non-historic vacation homes and rentals. In addition to the 3 historic cottages within the 37th Street Cottages Historic District, only 9 other remaining cottages have been identified in the area of the hundreds that once comprised the resort area. Surrounded by hotels and modern commercial development, this district is a rare surviving early 20th century streetscape that is representative of Virginia Beach's early development patterns and architectural character. We are looking at this under the local level of significance. Criterion A for entertainment and recreation, criterion C for architecture, with a period of significance comprising the initial construction in 1913 of the first resource through 1954, at which point all extant historic resources were completed. There are 7 contributing resources in this district, and this was also written by Commonwealth Preservation Group.
One of the storms cottages.
Approval.
Yep. Or if there's no questions from the State Review Board and we don't mind voting on them as a block, I would like to entertain a motion to approve the nominations as presented.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jody. All right. All those in favor of approving the Eastern Region nominations as a block, please say aye.
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 And we'll have the Historic Resources Review Board vote in block 2 for the Eastern region. Do I have a second? Make them.
I'll move to approve the block of the Eastern region.
Thank you very much, Attorney Pollard. Do I
Second.
have a second? Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. The Eastern block passes.
Thanks. Right now, we'll move on to the Northern region.
Just got one for you today, so quick. We're going down to Fredericksburg, up to Fredericksburg for the Fall Hill Avenue Medical Historic District. The Fall Hill Avenue Medical Historic District, located in the city of Fredericksburg, comprises almost 11 acres with 4 buildings, 3 contributing and 1 non-contributing. The 3 contributing buildings are associated with the modern movement and are related to the medical industry development of the area. Contributing resources located on the property include the Old Mary Washington Hospital, circa 1949, the Medical Arts Building, circa 1958, the Dr. Walter Johnson Building, circa 1958, and 1 non-contributing resource, which is the National Bank of Fredericksburg, built in 1975. The Fall Hill Avenue Historic District is representative of Fredericksburg's growth and vitality during the post-World War II era. The district is locally significant under criterion A in the area of health and medicine. The area along the northeast side of Fall Hill Avenue and its surroundings historically consisted of single-family residential development, which began around the late 19th century. The area southwest of the Fall Hill Avenue was still undeveloped at this time. The first resource in the district, Old Mary Washington Hospital, was constructed in 1949. The former hospital functioned as Fredericksburg's only hospital from its construction until the hospital's operations relocated in 1993. The district's period of significance begins in 1949 with the construction of the hospital and ends in 1971, encompassing important additions to the building, including a 1968 addition, which brought cardiac and intensive care units, both types of specialized care that had previously only been available in larger cities. The area's development began when Mary Washington Hospital relocated from its overcrowded and cluttered or outdated 1929 downtown Fredericksburg location. The hospital's construction exerted a strong influence on subsequent development patterns in the surrounding area, leading to the construction of additional medical-related facilities. Plans for construction of a new hospital came as the population of the area grew, and it coincided with the passage of the Hill-Burton Act in 1946. The legislation authorized federal grants and loans for construction and modernization of hospitals, nursing homes, and other healthcare facilities in exchange for those facilities providing services to people unable to pay for care. Mary Washington Hospital ranked among the first new hospital buildings in Virginia to be funded by the Hill-Burton Act. The building, as constructed, was designed in anticipation of future enlargement by construction of additional wings. The new hospital was described as a modern facility that will provide services for everything from faster delivery of hot meals, switchboard operations, to a new emergency department with a separate driveway, parking lot, and entrance to allow ambulance to deliver patients more quickly to waiting doctors and nurses. During the 1950s, construction of new hospitals and additions to existing hospitals, along with construction of medical arts buildings and public health centers, became widespread in Virginia. Population growth, the era's baby boom, constantly emerging new diagnostic treatment and surgical methods, and availability of state and federal grants combined to fuel rapid construction rate. Mary Washington Hospital would be added on to multiple times during the district's period of significance. Additions were completed in 1958 and 1959. These additions allowed for more beds and expanded facilities for dietary, physical therapy, x-ray, and administrative and other needs that would improve patient care. In May of 1968, another expansion project resulted in the extension of the South Wing's third and fourth stories. In 1971, the Amy Guest Memorial Wing was added. These expansions were representative of the rapid technological development that characterized post-World War II hospital care. In 1958, the Medical Arts Building was constructed across the street from the hospital. The building housed the second group of private practice physicians to be established in Fredericksburg, a healthcare approach which at the time was an emerging approach to providing modern treatments on an outpatient basis. Medical arts buildings were a new type of healthcare facility where patient exams, surgical procedures, x-rays, and other services that did not require overnight hospital stays were provided. Although this type of building had its origins in the 1920s, it proliferated rapidly after World War II as healthcare nationwide modernized to bring accessible care to a wide range of localities. The Dr. Johnson's office building was constructed also in 1958. It's 2 blocks from north of the hospital. This building was built for Dr. Walter H. Johnson, an osteopath, who relocated to Fredericksburg from Richmond in pursuit of opportunities to expand his practice. The design of this building complements the other modern movement architectural resources in the district, and the building continued to be associated with significant historic trends underway throughout the period of significance. Today, it is being used as a dentist office. The Fall Hill Avenue Historic District is being considered again for the National Register under Criterion A, Health and Medicine. District represents a collection of buildings constructed because of the growing population of Fredericksburg area and to accommodate the changes in modernization within the field of medicine. The period of significance for the district begins in 1949 with the construction of Mary Washington Hospital and ends again in 1971, encompassing the construction of additional contributing buildings and ongoing expansion of the hospital. Level of significance is local, again, under A, Health and Medicine, 3 contributing resources, and 1 non-contributing resource. And again, CPG, who's been very busy around, the authors are Victoria Leonard and Lena McDonald specifically, again, from Commonwealth Preservation Group. For you today.
Are there any questions from the State Review Board? If none, can I have a nomination to approve the Fall Hill Avenue Medical Historic District?
Would like to,
Sorry, Lena.
sorry, I'm with CPG. I just would like to mention that Danae Peckler at Historic Fredericksburg Foundation was super generous in reviewing the nomination and providing additional research that she had found. And I forgot to say that earlier.
Thanks, Lena. All right, then moving forward, is there a nomination to approve or a motion to approve the nomination as presented?
So moved.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Any questions on this nomination? No. Let's see. Can I have a motion to approve the Northern Region nomination?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
A second. Aye. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. The Northern Block passes.
You. If I may, I'd like to invite both boards to have some lunch. So we'll take a break for lunch.
Western Region.
Oh,
We have the Western.
Still have to do the Western region.
oh, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Jumping the gun.
Mike's ready.
You want to go have lunch?
I'll get through these pretty quick. Good morning. I'll start you off with the Little Valley School in Carroll County. Located in the rural meadows of Dan community in Carroll County in the Blue Ridge Mountains of southwestern Virginia. Little Valley School is a 2-classroom frame schoolhouse built in 1929, according to plans borrowed from Samuel Smith's community school plans, published in 1924 by the Julius Rosenwald Fund. Opened in 1930, the building served as a public school for white students from local farming families, 1st through 6th grades, throughout the Great Depression and post-World War II periods until its closure in 1953. A truncated version of Rosenwald Plan Number 4 for a 4-teacher school, Little Valley School possesses the rare, though not unheard of, distinction of being a white school built during the era of segregation, using widely published Rosenwald plans. Little Valley School is the only recorded example of a Rosenwald design employed for a white rather than African-American student body in Virginia. School is locally significant for its excellent state of preservation, its representation of small rural schools of the early to mid 20th century, and its embodiment of distinctive characteristics of school architecture of the period. Like many others, it was built by the county school board on privately donated land with local volunteer labor. The Rosenwald published floor plan came with material specifications for framing, cladding, roofing, interior finishes, windows, and so on. The designs were intended to facilitate learning and promote a healthy environment for the students and faculty by emphasizing quality of light, ventilation, and warmth in the winter, and were a dramatic improvement over the rural public schools that previously existed. Little Valley School is significant at the local level for its historical association with the outstanding educator, John Reed Duncan, thought to have been the longest serving teacher in Carroll County history. Within his 54 years of teaching, he taught at both the first school, which was destroyed, and the second, which is the one we're nominating, extant Little Valley Schools, and another nearby school, which is no longer extant, for about 40 years. He began his education on the very first day of the public school system went into operation in 1870. He served as a part-time substitute teacher at the age of 16, but officially began his career in 1883 at the age of 17 when he received his license to teach. His starting salary was $16 a month. Over the course of his career, Duncan's work earned many accolades. Little Valley School is a local landmark that represents John R. Duncan's contributions to the history of education. The school is, as I mentioned, nominated at the local level of significance under criterion B and for education and criterion C for architecture. Period of significance is from its construction in 1929 to its closing as a school in 1953. I did mention that after that, it became a single-family residence for a while, and now it's been returned to educational purposes. It's going to be a training workshop for artisans. There's 2 contributing resources, the school building and a privy, and then 3 non-contributing resources, 2 sheds and a small pond. And the nomination was written by the property owner, Michael J. Locus, and myself. Okay. Our next nomination is, go back to that map so you all know where Lynchburg is. The 1956 Hunton Branch YMCA is a 1-story international style concrete block masonry recreational building clad in brick veneer with a flat roof. The building's exterior retains a high degree of integrity with distinctive features including metal sash windows, metal pipe railings, and deep overhanging eaves sheathed with metal coping. The building's interior has been updated over time but retains its original floor plan. The facility continues to serve as a community recreational center. Located on 12th Street, a main thoroughfare connecting the Diamond Hill neighborhood to the historic Dunbar High School and Lynchburg's downtown. The international style building was designed by a prominent local architect, Pendleton Clark. Planned in 1954, the same year that the U.S. Supreme Court's decision in Brown versus Board of Education made school segregation illegal, the Hunton Branch YMCA is locally significant as the only YMCA built for African-American residents in Lynchburg, and one of the few remaining buildings that historically provided recreational space for the city's Black community, in particular men and boys. While the National YMCA formally desegregated in 1946, the Hunton Branch in Lynchburg remained separate from the Central Virginia YMCA from its opening in 1956 until 1965, when the Lynchburg YMCA implemented an open membership integration policy. The Hunton Branch YMCA is nominated for listing at the local level of significance under Criterion A in the areas of ethnic heritage and social history, as well as Criterion C in the area of architecture. The period of significance spans from 1956, when the building opened, to 1965, when the organization adopted an integration policy. During the decade following its opening in 1956, the Hunton featured a robust schedule of programs ranging from youth craft days to sports tournaments. Through its events, the Hunton regularly celebrated African-American contributions to the history of Lynchburg, the Commonwealth, Virginia, and the nation, including the accomplishments of its namesake, William A. Hunton, who visited Lynchburg during his campaigns to establish African-American YMCA branches in the 1890s. Contributing resources include an athletic field and a paved basketball court, currently only in fair condition. The Hunton Branch YMCA is nominated at the local level of significance under criteria A and C in the areas of ethnic heritage, social history, and architecture. Contributing resources are the building and the 2 recreational sites I mentioned. There's no non-contributing resources on a property. The nomination was written by Laura Purvis of Purvis Historic Preservation. Is she here? Is Laura here today? You may be online. I think she said she was coming. I do want to thank Larissa for her careful review and fairly extensive comments. The nomination is quite extensive, so I think it's natural that there would be a few things that are worth revising, and Laura is aware of that now. Okay. Next, we have the Norfolk and Western Class A number 1218 locomotive, which is normally kept in the city of Roanoke at the Virginia Museum of Transportation. The Norfolk and Western Class A number 1218 is an articulated coal-burning steam locomotive completed and delivered for service on June 2nd, 1943 by the Norfolk and Western Railway at their East End shops in Rona. The 1218 is the only surviving Class A locomotive built by Norfolk and Western, and the only surviving steam engine with the 2-6-6-4 wheel arrangement in the world. It is the quintessential example of the N&W's philosophy of modern superpower steam locomotive design, the last great advance of steam locomotive development / technology in the 20th century. Originally operating until 1959, the locomotive routinely pulled 150 cars loaded with coal and fast freight merchandise trains at an average speed of 70 miles per hour. It was also used to move military troops and equipment during World War II. 1218 was restored in 1986 and used for passenger excursions from 1987 to 1991. It is currently parked at the Virginia Museum of Transportation in Roanoke, along with the N&W Class J number 611 locomotive, which was nominated and listed last year. The 1218 is nominated at the statewide level of significance under Criterion A in the area of transportation for its significance in the history of rail service in Virginia, and under Criterion C in the area of engineering for its embodiment of the distinctive characteristics of the superpower era of steam engine design. And this last slide is for railroad geeks only. The sleek, modern design of the 1218 locomotive is considered one of the most novel and striking in railroad history. 121 feet long, 16 feet in height, and weighing 951,000 pounds, it was solidly built, huge, and immensely powerful. Fueled by coal, the tender car attached to it carried 35 tons of coal and 22,000 gallons of water. Its boiler pressure could handle 300 pounds per square inch and produced 5,400 horsepower. The engine's top speed of 70 miles an hour was practically unheard of in the universe of coal-burning locomotives. So the criteria are A and C. Areas of significance are transportation and engineering. Period of significance 1943 till it was taken out of service 1959. And the author is Zach McGinnis of the Virginia Museum of Transportation. Lastly, I have for you today Gilbert's Restaurant in the town of Chatham in Pittsylvania County. Located along North Main Street in a mostly residential area in North Chatham, Gilbert's Restaurant was constructed circa 1945 by the Reverend Robert Gregory Gilbert as a gas station, grocery, and general store, tourist home, and cafe serving African-American citizens. Gilbert served occasionally as an entertainment venue. The Gilbert family retained signed mementos of performances by Fats Domino and the singing Siamese twins, Yvette and Yvonne MacArthur, among others. At other times, Gilbert's hosted meetings held by local Black professionals and community organizations. Built in a time of social change in the years following World War II, Gilbert's historically served as a local haven and a harbor for Black entrepreneurship, as well as women's economic freedom, civil rights, and racial justice, and it remains emblematic of Black entrepreneurs across the South who sought to uproot the separate but equal justification of racial segregation. The business thrived as a one-stop shop for men and women who otherwise had doors closed to them. As a restaurant and tourist home, Gilbert's hosted everyone from teachers to famous entertainers and was the site of notable meetings of civil rights organizations and NAACP attorneys who frequented the nearby Pittsylvania County Courthouse. The nominated boundary also includes the Craftsman-style Gilbert family home located about 10 feet north of the restaurant. The restaurant building has been vacant since 1999 and as a result is only in fair condition, especially regarding the interior. Some areas, such as the second floor, which is apartments, have a poor appearance because of damage from weather and persisting long-term vacancy. Despite the current condition and appearance of the Gilbert's Restaurant building, however, its integrity of location, design, setting, materials, and association remain evident, and it remains a well-known landmark in Chatham for its significance to local Black history with good potential for rehabilitation. Level of significance is local. The criterion is criteria A. Areas of significance are ethnic history and commerce. Period of significance is from construction of the house and restaurant circa 1945 to 1974. I think is the 50-year cutoff. And contributing resources are the house and the restaurant. There are no non-contributing resources. The nomination was written by Ina Dixon, who is a historian and manager of Storied Capital LLC. Those are my nominations for this quarter. Do you have any questions? Be glad to try to answer them.
Are there any other locomotives on the register in Virginia?
Just the 611, which we nominated last year. There's only 2 in Virginia, but there's about 60. This will be the 61st, I think, in the nation.
Oh.
If there are no other questions or comments, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the Western Region nominations as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Carol. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes.
And may I have a motion to approve the Western nominations as a block?
I move to approve the block with Western nominations.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The Western block passes.
All right. On that note, we need a final nomination to close the meeting, or perhaps Julie will. You need to say anything before we close the meeting, or?
I just wanted to give some direction around lunch. The Board of Historic Resources will be meeting back in this space, so you need to determine at what time you will reconvene.
We'll do 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock?
Yeah.
Okay. And the State Review Board, are you going to go with 1 o'clock as well? Okay, and you'll be in another room that's
Down that way.
out this way, which is also the direction to head for lunch. The boards will go into the kitchen, which is pretty obvious, where lunches are set out, and you're welcome to sit where you see tables as well as outside, inside or outside. And we'll see everybody back at 1 o'clock. Thank you.
All right, we need a motion to adjourn.
I'm gonna go back to work, I think.
Oh, really?
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor to adjourn, say aye.
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 It's, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
This concludes the joint board of Historic Resources. After we reconvene, we'll discuss easements, historic highway markers, and burial state review. We'll convene where Julie mentioned. We will reconvene at 1 o'clock.